Starting a career mode with Napoli in FC26 means taking charge of one of Italy's most intense and tactically disciplined sides under Antonio Conte. After an impressive summer transfer window filled with smart and ambitious signings, Napoli look stronger than ever and are ready to go again this season. With a squad full of depth, character and quality, the goal will be clear: retain their Serie A title and add even more silverware to the trophy cabinets. Since Conte's arrival last season, there's been a renewed sense of structure and intensity within the team, blending his trademark tactical discipline with Napoli's attacking flair. The combination of grit and creativity makes the side both hard to break down and dangerous going forward. This is how you can start a Napoli career mode in FC26. Starting off any career mode begins with understanding why the manager sets his team up the way he does. And with Antonio Conte at Napoli, it's a very specific and disciplined style of play that gets every player firing on all cylinders. Conte currently sets his side up in a 4-1-4-1 formation, a slight tactical evolution from his trademark back three system, but one that still carries all the hallmarks of his footballing philosophy. This setup gives Napoli a strong defensive foundation, with a single pivot anchoring the midfield and protecting the back line, while the two central midfielders operate aggressively to press and recover possession. Out wide, Conte relies on high work rate and structure, as his wingers are expected to track back and maintain compactness before bursting forward during transitions. In attack, the lone striker acts as the focal point, holding up play and creating space for midfield runners to join the attack. In possession, Napoli build patiently from the back, but move with intent, using vertical passing to progress the ball quickly through the lines. It's a system built on discipline, energy and precision, making it perfect for players who enjoy structured, tactical gameplay in career mode. For those interested in replicating the system in FC26, be sure to check out the Antonio Conte Napoli Tactics video already available, as it breaks down every detail of his setup, including the player instructions and the style of play, that will help you bring Conte's Napoli to life in your career mode. Next up is the squad at Conte's disposal, and here we'll have a closer look at the players who are part of the long-term vision and those who may be on their way out. With Napoli now fully embracing Conte's philosophy, every position in the team has a clear purpose, so identifying who fits the project and who doesn't will be key to shaping the squad for the seasons ahead. Now, out of a 40-man squad, there are currently 3 goalkeepers. The first is Contini, who we all know is the third choice option. However, things get a bit more tasty as we move on down the line. Milinkovic-Savic from Torino, who has been loaned in for the season, but there is an obligation to buy come the end of it. He's been brought in to try and compete with Alex Murray, who's also recently just signed a brand new deal with the club, securing his long-term future with Napoli and hopefully under Antonio Conte. So there will be a lot of competition for that first spot, that starting position, and Murray as well as Milinkovic-Savic have the qualities to really try and outmatch one another and provide real competition to each other under Conte. And we all know that Conte likes to have a good amount of quality in his side to select from, and the goalkeeping position is no different. Now for the left back position, of course there's Spinazzola, Oliveira and Gutierrez. Now Gutierrez is brand new, he's not going to go anywhere, and to be honest, whenever I've watched him play for Napoli, I think he's been very good. Whenever I watched him play for Girona, I thought he was incredible. So I think long term, he is the guy to be starting down that left-hand side of the defense. Oliveira will probably be a really good backup. If not, he will provide really good competition to start ahead of players like Gutierrez or maybe even Spinazzola. Now, Spinazzola is in a weird position. His contract's currently coming to an end at the end of the season, but Conte as well as the Napoli board want to try and secure him for the long-term future. Of course, he is 32 years of age, but you know what he is? Very versatile. He can play down the left or the right hand side, as well as can function in multiple different formations. I'm talking wing back, I'm talking full back, or maybe even winger. And it's a running theme for how Antonio Conte likes his squads being built, but there have to be a few very versatile players within that squad in order to try and have certain players shifting around the pitch whenever needed or required. So Spinazzola is one of those players, and he will definitely prove to be a great bit of experience to have in the dressing room as one of the leaders, but also as a mentor to some of the younger players that eventually do come through the doors. As for the centre backs, there are 7 on the first team books, with 2 of them loaned out. The first is Obaritan, who has been loaned out to Empoli. Now, with that Empoli loan, there's also an obligation to buy come the end of the season, so he is definitely a player that you shouldn't rely on or count on. And if he does come back from his loan in the game, you should definitely look to try and sell him on and make some money and then recoup that money and put it back into the first team squad, because we all know that that is exactly what Antonio Conte would want and require and definitely do. Following on from Obaritan is Jesus, Buongiorno, Rahmani, as well as Bukima. Now this is a player that Conte and the board really wanted from Bologna. They fought tooth and nail to get him, and they eventually did. He is going to definitely have a long-term future at this club, and I do think he's only 26, approaching the prime of his career. He is going to be the long-term replacement for Amir Rahmani, who's 31, so he's still got some years to definitely give and provide to Conte and Napoli, and he will definitely be the replacement for this man going forward. So you've already got the replacement for that right side of the defense. Alessandro Buongiorno is a brilliant player. He's also very young, so having a great centre-back partnership for now in Rahmani and Buongiorno, and for the future in Bukima and Buongiorno, makes a whole lot of sense. Now, the one player that I am kind of questioning is the likes of Juan Jesus. His contract is set to expire at the end of the season. I've done a lot of research, but I haven't been able to find out or see if either Conte or the board or Juan Jesus want to try and continue this relationship with one another. At the back end of last season, his contract was set to expire, but then Napoli were able to trigger the 1-year extension, the +1. But I haven't been able to find out if he's looking to stay longer than this season, and he might look to leave as a free agent. And then, of course, it does mean that Napoli would have to bring in another player, or maybe, just maybe use one of the loanee players. And when I say loanee, it wouldn't be Obaraton, it would be another player. But I'm not too sure if he's going to stay or if he's going to go. He is up there in age at 34, almost 35 years old. If you're a Napoli fan and you know more than me, comments down below, does Juan Jesus stay or does he go? To round off the centre-back position is Marin as well as Marianucci. Now, this is a young player who recently signed for the club, and I would probably look to loan him out for FC26 purposes, trying to get that overall up, trying to get the value up as well, because he could be a great long-term option for Antonio Conte in the side. Now, the other player is Marin, who was loaned out to Villarreal. Now, this is a straight loan. There's no option to buy. There's no obligation. It's just a loan to try and get minutes in his legs, as well as try and develop him. And if he does come back and he's a better player, and he fits the way that Antonio Conte wants his side playing, he will definitely get a lot of minutes under the Italian manager. Onto the right back position, and there's the club captain Di Lorenzo, Mazzocchi, and Zanoli. Now, Zanoli was loaned out to Udinese, and there is an obligation to buy for the Italian club, so this player will definitely not be returning. And just like with Obaraton, if he does come back, look to try and sell him and recoup some of that money and then reinvest it somehow, some way. I do have a few transfer targets that you might be interested in looking to try and reinvest that money into. As for Mazzocchi, I think he's a great backup option, but that's more or less all he is. At 72 overall, at 28 years of age, he's not going to get any better. In fact, he's probably going to get worse. So this area as a whole is not strong enough. You've got a great option as your starting right back, but how long will he be a great option? He's 31 years old, and it's only going to go downhill from there on out. The decline will inevitably hit Di Lorenzo at some point. It might not be season 1, but it will definitely be in season 2 or 3. So there is that, and it's something that you need to consider as the person running the club, as Antonio Conte, and all that good stuff that comes with it. Into the midfield, and Karius is a player who has been loaned out for the past 2 seasons, and both of those loans, coincidentally enough, were to Ipswich Town. Last season it was just a loan. This season it's a loan with an obligation to buy, so he will also definitely be leaving the club. He's got no future under Conte and at Napoli, so looking to shift him out the door if that loan obligation doesn't actually work out come the end of the season. Shift him out the door on a permanent transfer to another club and get that money in. Now, one thing I did note was with this Napoli squad and how it's been constructed under Conte and with this board, there are several players who are part of the first team and are key players to the first team that have been loaned in. Now, Elmas is one of those players. Now, I view Elmas as a very different player to a lot of the other players in this side. He can play in multiple positions, midfield, wing, and he can function very, very well. He provides certain unique traits that allow him to be the difference maker in certain games or in different situations. Now, he also has an option to buy, or it could be an obligation to buy. I'm not too sure. It's an option of 16 to 16.5 million euros. And in my personal opinion, if he does do well and that clause is triggered, it's a great bit of business. It is a fantastic bit of business. And this is a player who could quite easily develop and improve his overall game, and then at a later point in the career mode be sold on for a decent amount of money, if not a great amount of money. Into the CM position, and Hassa is a young 21-year-old Italian midfielder. Now, it makes a lot of sense why he was loaned out. He's got a long-term future under Conte and the club really do rate him, which is why they've loaned him out. So I would probably say loan him out again come next season, because if you look at the quality that this midfield has, it's outrageous. There's Kevin De Bruyne, recently signed on a free, that plays in his position. There's also Lobotka, fantastic, the midfield brain of Conte's team. Then there's Zambo Anguissa, who we will talk about because there are certain rumors swirling with his future at the club, but he is the engine room. Then of course there's the MVP, Scott McTominay, who came in and absolutely smashed it last season, and to a lesser extent, Billy Gilmore also came in and did very well when called upon. So a player like Hazard won't get minutes, he won't develop, so it makes a lot of sense to just try and loan him out and see him develop away from the club, and then at a later point you bring him back and he is fully grown and ready to go. As for Zambo Anguissa, Andre Frank Zambo-Anguissa is a great player. He is the engine room. He is the guy who's the box-to-box, provides a little bit of everything in all spaces of the pitch. Last summer, there were several rumors surrounding him and his future, and because of the signing of Kevin De Bruyne, a lot of people said that he might leave the club, and he didn't. And to be fair, it's worked out quite well, especially at the start of the season. He's been very good for Napoli. I can't remember exactly which game it was, but he did score the winner in like the 93rd or 94th minute. So at the beginning of this season, he's been a great player for the club. But there are also rumors surrounding him as well as Sunderland, with the English club looking to try and bring him to the Premier League, which would kind of be a return to the Premier League because he did play for Fulham and then he left Fulham and he joined Napoli and things worked out. He revived his career and all that good stuff that comes with it. So he could potentially be leaving. But if you look at the other midfielders, McTominay, Gilmour, Lobotka, and of course Kevin De Bruyne, I don't think they're going anywhere. And it's for various different reasons. Kevin De Bruyne has recently just signed for the club. So barring an outrageous event, maybe he falls out with Conte or something like that, I don't see him leaving. Whereas a player like Lobotka, he's a very unique profile. If you have a look at the construction of this Napoli team, there's not one player in the team that can do what he does at the base of midfield. If you have a look at that 4-1-4-1 structure or system or formation, Lobotka sits at the base of it and he organizes, he dictates, he sets the tone, he creates the offensive flow to the game. Now, of course, Kevin De Bruyne can do that, but not in the positions that Lobotka gets into and connects the play to the midfield or the attack. So looking for a replacement for Lobotka might potentially be what keeps him at the club and makes him pretty much indispensable under Antonio Conte. And then, of course, McTominay was the MVP of Serie A last season. It would take a lot of money to get him out the club. As for Billy Gilmour, yes, to a lesser extent, but he was also very good when called upon as a number 6, as a number 8. He was very, very good last season, and I don't see him going anywhere anytime soon. Now, the next 5 players have all been loaned out and all have various different options or futures with Napoli and Conte and all that good stuff that comes with it. Now, Folo Runshaw has been loaned out and there is an option to buy in that initial loan. So maybe, just maybe, if he comes back, you then look to sell him on, because I don't think he has much of a future under Conte. Now, the same can also be said for Zerban as well as Lindstrom. Lindstrom last season was loaned out to Everton. It didn't really work out. He then came back. He was then loaned out to Wolfsburg this season. And if he comes back again, you should either look to loan him out with an obligation to buy or an option to buy, or maybe, just maybe, you try and sell him on. And I mean, Zerban as well. Now, with Ngong, it's a very different situation. Conte does not want him or see him as part of the future plans for Napoli, especially under him. Maybe if Conte then leaves and moves on, Ngong may have a potential future at the club. However, as things stand right now with Conte being in charge, he has been loaned out to Torino. I'm pretty sure it's just a straight loan. When he does come back inevitably, it should be a full-time sale to another club. Now, as for Rayo, who is also out on loan, he has a very good future as a potential superstar in the making. So another loan after this one might be the best thing for his development. But that leads us nicely onto the next segment of the team. The wingers. We've got David Neres, Noah Lang, who's just signed, Politano, and then Vergara. Now, in terms of Vergara, he's a young player, 22 years of age. He needs to develop. He's not effectively good enough to replace a Politano or a Lang or a David Neres. So maybe looking to loan him out. I know he is slightly older than an 18-year-old that you would naturally loan out, but loan him out, let him develop, let him get more minutes, because at this moment in time, he's the 4th choice winger. So you won't have a lot of minutes to give him unless you're looking to rotate consistently, which might actually happen. But you might want to loan him out or maybe sell him and bring in better quality. Whereas for Matteo Politano, he is currently negotiating a new deal with the club to try and secure his long-term future. He is up there in age, 31, so maybe a player like Vergara, who's only 22, could be his long-term replacement. Now, on the left-hand side, there's Noah Lang, who's recently come in, and we'll have to see how he really works out and flourishes under Conte or not. But I think it's a good signing. It's still early, I understand and I know, but I do think that this is a very good signing. Now, Lang was signed from PSV in the Eredivisie. Now, David Neres, I know he was signed from the Portuguese league. Was it Benfica? It was Benfica. That's correct. But David Neres in the Eredivisie was absolutely outstanding for Ajax. And to be honest, last season for Napoli, he was incredible as well. A very good utility winger. And I say utility winger, not player, because he can play down the left or the right and be very good on either side. On the right-hand side, he's an inside sort of forward looking to cut inside on his dominant left foot and whipping crosses or shots or doing something. And on the left-hand side, he's more of a natural winger looking to supply natural crosses from that left-hand side with his left foot into the box, or maybe even supply a few cutbacks here and there. So a very good option off the bench, or maybe even to start a few games, and he can quite easily rotate with a player like a Noah Lang, or maybe even a Politano. So very good options on the wing. However, the depth is a bit of a worry. And then to round off the squad section of this video is the striker, the man who cashes the checks, leads the attack, spearheads the offense, and really does get down to business. Now, for Napoli, there are 7 players on the first team books, with a few players loaned in, a few players loaned out, and one player in particular that ties everything all together. So we will be discussing that, starting off with Sagabi, who does have a long-term future with Conte at Napoli. He has been loaned out for the season. However, he is also 24 years old, so it is a bit of a weird one, but in the loan, there's no obligation or option to buy. So you might want to, at the end of the season, maybe sell him on, but realistically wise, he could be a decent, or average, I should say, striker option that you would rotate with every now and then. Next on the list is Romelu Lukaku. Now, this is the man who's tying everything together. At the beginning of the season, he ended up getting injured, which was quite sad for him. After an incredible, rejuvenating season with Napoli last year that helped them obviously win the Serie A title. But he got injured at the beginning of the season, which led to Napoli being very proactive and bringing in other players. But just sticking with the likes of Lukaku for the time being, he has also been linked with several moves away from the club. Clubs in Saudi Arabia are interested. Anderlecht, his boyhood club, the club that developed him, grew him, nurtured him, helped him get to this amazing career that he has had over the last 10-15 years. They're also interested in maybe reuniting with Lukaku. So at this moment in time, his future is up in there, but we all know that Antonio Conte loves Romelu Lukaku, so we might not see that move materialize, at least not this season. Maybe in a season or two's time, that could maybe be the move. But for now, I do see him being the mainstay number 9, especially when he does come back from his, I think it was a 3-month injury, so he should be coming back closer to December than anything else. Another striker who has been loaned out is Simeone. He was loaned out to Torino, but there is an obligation of 8 million euros that will be paid come the end of the season. I'm pretty sure it's something to do with the Milinkovic-Savic deal, so one player goes the other way, vice versa, and you will see both of those deals made permanent, the one player joining Napoli and the other joining Torino. Now, I mentioned Lukaku ties a lot of this stuff together. His injury had a knock-on effect for multiple strikers being brought into the club, and maybe, just maybe, being his actual replacements. That being Rasmus Højlund from Manchester United, and the other being Lorenzo Luca. I was going to say Lorenzo Luca. So both of these young strikers were brought in. Now I'm pretty sure that it's actually Rasmus Højlund who is the Lukaku replacement, whereas Lorenzo Luca is the guy who was always going to be brought in as the backup striker. Now, both of these players, I'm pretty sure, will be permanent fixtures at the end of the season. They will be made permanent. With Højlund, there are a few options and obligations that need to be met first, such as Napoli making the Champions League next season, and then I think it's around a £38.5 million, which is 45 million euros. Quick maths and doing all that good stuff. It's around that fee that will then be paid to United, and then Højlund, who's done very well, might I say, especially to start off the season with Napoli, of course. He's done very well, and I think as a long-term striker option, you can't really do too much wrong here by getting in a Rasmus Højlund as well as a Lorenzo Luca. Now, if any Premier League fans are watching this and saying, haha, Højlund's rubbish, I'm fully aware that you have your opinion, but certain leagues just fit and benefit certain players. That's all I'll say to that. And I think the Italian league really does suit Rasmus Højlund. So fair enough to him, and fair enough to Napoli, and also fair enough to Antonio Conte, because he has got him absolutely cooking to start this season off with. Now, the last two names in the striker department are Shadira, who has been loaned out to Sassuolo. He was loaned out last season to Espanyol. This is a player that I don't see having a long-term future. I'm pretty sure I even said this in my last How to Start Napoli Career Mode video. He was loaned out to Sassuolo, and he'll probably come back and either be loaned out again or possibly be sold on for a decent amount of money, because he does have an okay overall. So you sell him on, you get that money, you reinvest into probably a better striker, or maybe that can go to the Rasmus Højlund fee to Man United, or Lorenzo Luca's fee to Udinese. That could be options, but I just don't see him working out long term. Whereas Ambrosino definitely does have a long term future. This is a player that Napoli are very much intent on keeping. Now, his contract is set to expire in 11 months. The club wants to keep him on a permanent basis, so they're looking to try and negotiate a brand new contract with him, secure him for the long term, and then look to maybe loan him out for a season or two to try and develop and grow, get the good minutes into the legs, get the experience required, and maybe he can come back and be a great rotational striker, competing alongside a Højlund or a Lorenzo Luca, or maybe even a Lukaku if he hasn't left at that point. Youth scouting is also a major part of career mode, and while Napoli aren't traditionally known for producing elite young talent through their academy, the club has made real strides in recent years to invest in youth development. Building a proper scouting network will be key to sustaining success and creating a pipeline for future stars ready to step up when needed. The first priority should be setting up a scout in Italy, focusing on uncovering homegrown prospects who understand the league's tactical demands and can adapt quickly to Conte's disciplined system. The next focus should be scouting in Africa, with particular attention to countries like Ivory Coast, where Napoli have shown increasing interest in finding physically strong, technically gifted young players who fit the club's growing recruitment model. And last year, scouting in South America, which should be the prime target region for uncovering elite technical talents capable of bringing flair and creativity to the team in the future. By expanding their scouting reach across these regions, Napoli can realistically build a sustainable squad, mixing experienced leaders with the next generation of rising stars ready to thrive under Conte's demanding, high-energy style of football. As for the main first-team scouting, the club are focused on strengthening a few key positions, while also keeping an eye out for smart market opportunities. The first position of priority on the list is right back, as there is a noticeable shortage of quality and depth in that area of Napoli's squad. Finding a long-term replacement for Giovanni Di Lorenzo will be one of the club and Conte's main objectives moving forward, ensuring stability and consistency on the flank. Another area the manager may look to strengthen is central midfield, specifically the CDM role. While both Lobotka and Gilmour are highly capable in that position, adding another player could be vital to maintaining balance and rotation throughout the season, especially with the intensity and physical demands of the coach's system. In terms of market opportunities, Napoli's recruitment remains sharp and financially astute. The signing of KDB on a free transfer last summer perfectly reflected the club's ability to attract world-class players, even in the latter stages of their careers. It should come as no surprise that the board will continue exploring similar opportunities in the upcoming windows, targeting top-quality experienced players nearing the end of their contracts who can still make a massive impact in Naples. Now, there are a few transfers that Napoli have recently been linked with, and the club may look to execute some of these deals over the next few windows to further strengthen the squad. Under Antonio Conte, maintaining a high standard of performance is non-negotiable, and that extends to the level of quality within the team. With the board and management working closely together, Napoli are aiming to make smart additions that not only improve the current side, but also ensure the long-term competitiveness of the team across all fronts. Now, as I mentioned in the scouting section of this video, the right-back area for Napoli is somewhat weak. The depth in that area is not good enough. Now, a player like Mazzocchi is good enough to rotate with a player like Di Lorenzo, but Di Lorenzo will always be the starting option over a player like Mazzocchi. So off the bench, he's okay. As a occasional start here and there, Mazzocchi is fine. But the reality is Di Lorenzo is up there in age. He's going to start dropping off. He's going to inevitably retire at some point, whether it's a season or two, or maybe even 3 seasons time. So trying to secure yourself that long-term option is going to be key. Now, I've put down 3 options here on this list that are all linked with a move to Napoli and could come in and make a great impact for the future. The first is Coyote from Brentford. Now, this has got 1 or 2 different scenarios that I can think of that Napoli could possibly try and get this deal done over the line. The first is they pay a lot of money to try and get his services. He's recently, like quite literally recently, made the move permanent from Fiorentina to Brentford. So it would take a lot of money to try and get him out of that Brentford contract. And of course, they are a Premier League side, so there is that. But if Brentford do get relegated, there will obviously be a relegation release clause that Napoli could then look to execute and trigger and then bring him to Naples. Now, this is a young 20-year-old Italian fullback, and in my opinion, he's done very well at Fiorentina and he's done very, very well at Brentford. Whenever I've watched Brentford play, he's been one of the standout players for them. Now, he could easily be the long-term replacement for Di Lorenzo. He could guarantee you a decade's worth of good work, hard work, and determination down that right flank. And it just makes a lot of sense to try and get a player like this into your team. And undoubtedly, he would be a great option to, back up or even replace long-term Di Lorenzo. Now, if that move doesn't work out, there's also Sanchez as well as Norton Cuffy from Girona and Sevilla, respectively. Now, these 2 players can also function quite well in a back 4 system or even a back 5 system. And so can Coyote, but more so these 2 players in Brook Norton Cuffy and Juanlu Sanchez, they could quite easily be deployed out wide as a wingback or a right midfielder, or even in a back 4 system. And for a player like Sanchez, he can be deployed in the midfield if needed or required. So he's very versatile. And again, it's one of those key traits that Conte does look for in a few of his players throughout the course of his squad. Up next on the list is Kobbie Mainoo. Now, this is a player that plays for my club that is incredibly talented, but he's also been linked with several moves away from the club because he's not getting enough game time under Ruben Amorim. He doesn't really fit into, apparently, the 3-4-2-1 system, and he is looking to try and get more minutes, especially ahead of the World Cup. Now, at the back end of the last transfer window, the one that's recently just closed, there were a lot of rumors swirling that he was looking for a move away, specifically a loan away from Manchester United. Now, Napoli were definitely a club that were looking at him because, of course, why would you not? He will definitely add a lot of quality to any team and basically every team in the world that he goes to. Now, I did say in this video that if you have a look at Lobotka, he is virtually irreplaceable for Antonio Conte. There's not one player in the current Napoli squad setup that can replace Lobotka. But if you bring in a player like Kobbie Mainoo, who, yes, I know people say he's a 10, people say he's an 8, some people say he's a 6, but he's young. You can mold him into basically anything. And if you have a look at Lobotka's game versus Kobbie Mainoo's game, they're very, very similar in terms of how they're passable, how they move, how they look to pop up in pockets of space. They're not super athletic, but the IQ in the player is what you need, and especially for this Antonio Conte system, the 4-1-4-1. At the base of midfield, controlling things, dictating the play, dictating the pace of the play, setting the tempo, setting the offense, that would be perfect for Conte as well as for Kobbie Mainoo. So it would, sadly for me, and virtually every single Man United fan, it would be very sad to see a player like this go because of the immense potential that he does have. But it also makes a lot of sense for a team like Napoli to maybe look to try and execute a deal with a player who's currently unhappy with the situation and with a club that's kind of in turmoil. Yes, it has to be said, sadly, but that is the case for a player like Kobbie Mainoo potentially leaving United, and I think it would be a great bit of business for Napoli, if I'm being very honest. Now, lastly on the list is Lee Kang-in. Now, the young right winger, I've just forgotten his name, I do apologize, but you should probably look to loan him out. Therefore, it would only leave you with 3 viable wing options. Now, Lee Kang-in is a versatile wing option. He can be deployed in the middle as a central midfielder, or out wide on the left, or even on the right. Very versatile, can be deployed in multiple areas on the pitch. It makes sense for Antonio Conte, but it also makes sense for him. He's not getting the most minutes at PSG as things stand, and at Napoli, he could definitely look to fit into the squad and compete alongside the other wingers, and maybe even be the long-term replacement for a player like Politano, who, of course, he is 31, turning 32 soon, and Napoli might be looking for life after him. And why not look to try and bring in a player like Lee Kang-in, who's only 24, about to be 25, about to hit the prime of his career. So maybe he could look to grow and develop into a club like this, and just all in all, it makes a lot of sense. However, of course, the deal would also need to make sense financially for both Napoli as well as PSG, so there could be a few sticking points, but I just think it would make a lot of sense. And there you go, people. That is how you can go ahead and start your career mode with Napoli and Antonio Conte. I do hope you have enjoyed this video, and if you don't mind, smash that like button down below, whilst also subscribing to the channel if you are new. We are trying to hit 25k as soon as possible, but the main goal for the channel is to try and hit 30k by the end of this year. So if you're not subscribed just yet, please do consider smashing that like button, as well as also subscribing to the channel. That would be fan-damn-tastic. And if you're looking for any extra content, things like retro tactics or extensions or very niche tactics, go ahead and check out my Patreon. I make a lot of stuff on there as well. It's another platform that I am on. Of course, it is a paid for subscription, but if you want to support the channel in another way, you can go there and check it out. If not, it's okay, it's fine. I still produce loads of content on YouTube for everybody and anybody and all that good stuff. Now, also, if you're looking for footballing chats and conversations, I'm talking banter, I'm talking FC26, I'm talking tactics chats and all that good stuff. The link for the Discord will be down below in the description, right next to the Patreon link. So there is that. But go ahead and check that out. If you have some time, if you have some energy to have a bit of a laugh and all that good stuff, by all means, join up with the Discord. Anyways, enough waffle, enough chat. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your goddamn day. I'm out of here. Peace!